Hmm. There. This may be slightly overkill for our purposes. Yeah, but who cares? This looks pretty good. Well, that's a huge drain on the system. We don't even need all of this. And so now, the chemical plant, I was planning on putting that around here. This area down here, as you can see, is a dead end. And I won't be bothering to fill this in with landfill. That would be a nightmare super task. Still performing as required. Oh, that's not good. Its coal stock is completely overflowing, and so now it leaves whenever it leaves the station seconds after arriving because it refills the coal, but doesn't refill the iron at all. That's a problem. So I switched it back to iron because ore was a huge problem. Look at this. It's this load imbalancing that we're looking at. And so guess what else? The coal doesn't even get out very much because it doesn't have the time to before the iron gets out entirely. And so it's like hauling back a thimble at a time. Well, at least I noticed and fixed it. Otherwise, we would be seeing problems and not know why until it's just too late. It's the worst kind of problem. Look at this. These belts aren't even being fully utilized. Need to smelt more iron. In fact, let's actually take a look at that right now. We want to be prepared for installing the liquid infrastructure. These are spent, I will be taking them back. And this one. Yes, and we should have more smelters in this line, since they're not even being fully utilized. The other one seems impartially utilized, or only partially utilized. In reality, it looks like we're just not getting in enough iron at a time. Mostly, but we also need more furnaces. There. Now this is a wreck. Hold on, hold everything. Let that drain. I want to operate on this before it becomes a bigger problem. As if it's not already a colossal problem. No. What a nightmare. Yes. All on one side. Hmm. That would help, and... Hmm. There's a right and a wrong way to do this part. We want all of these to be balanced together and then split after that to these two outputs. That's... Oh wait, another thing. We don't want it to be one-sided like that either. So actually... more like this. Yes, much better. Now look at that. That's much better. Might as well put this here as well. Not need to put it in later when we would need to. When we would need to. This all looks much better. There, now look, we're not even fully utilizing that load. And so we can actually go get some more bricks and make more steel furnaces. And actually put some here. So the first kinds of chemical processing we're going to want to do is sulfur, the acid, and plastic. Those will be three critical components. The acid can be used to be put into batteries, which also need iron and copper, which means it's going to need to be a branch on the main belt. And since it also takes a liquid, that would imply we should put the liquid lines on the main bus as part of the main bus. This, which will be the precursor to destroying the cliffs, will require just the raw sulfur. And what else? The plastic will be necessary for making advanced circuits, which the research for them is here. I can start that now. And advanced circuits are integral to making things like robots, so that's obviously going to need to be a priority. If something is the precursor component to a robot, then that would imply that it's quite important. I would think that would be obvious. There. Now that gets rid of all those bricks I don't need. And now I can focus on expanding this part. And this will allow us to, since we have faster belts, the belt throughput capacity is increased, which means we can make these longer and not have as many of them. If we were using slower belts, we would need to use more of these lines in parallel, and they would need to be shorter, because the belts wouldn't be able to get the components to the furnaces fast enough. I mean the ore, not the components. You say a word too many times, and eventually you'll start saying it by accident when you mean something else. I'm going to replace some of these outdated, obsolete wooden power lines as well, because they're irritating. Their radius of supply is much lower, and so is their reach to the other ones with the cables. Notice how already this makes everything look much better. Oh, look at that. So much more sophisticated. Now, about this problem we have regarding smelting rate. I should say refining, that's the technical term in this case. This is going to be huge. Fortunately, the main bus is probably never going to branch upward, only east and south. Oh, and just wait until we have electric furnaces. We can double the ore input rate, because we can put ore on both sides of the belt at that point, and not need to have coal going everywhere. The negative to this is, well, yeah, more power. We need much more power for that, and that would imply things like, perhaps solar panels we would need, and those are expensive. There. And now this is going to backlog. Oh, and this is now obsolete. What we want instead is something like here. Halfway down the line. That's the manual balancing method. Or you could just do something like this at the end, which is actually a bad idea. You want it in the middle, which in this case is about here. There. Now, notice the arms can place down the iron much more readily because there's more space for it where they are. Oh, now look. The iron is barely getting to the end now because we have, I think, fully utilized the capacity of these belts. Or near fully. That's a huge processing rate now. Solar panels, look how much research that costs. And look how expensive that is. Steel is very expensive. At 15 circuits per one panel, that's extremely expensive. Just look at the total raw resources it states. For all those copper cables in the circuits, that's a lot of copper. And so we'll need a vastly upscaled copper refinement rate, which would also deplete our copper stores more readily. And guess what? We would need to expand one of these copper deposits after that, which would cost us a lot of time and energy and resources conquering, which we would prefer to save for much later. These stack inserters require advanced circuits, which is expensive, but they can transport stacks at a time, which is massively better than before. Yeah, it would make sense that the more expensive things in here would be more valuable for some reason or another. For the accumulators, for example, they store huge amounts of energy from things like solar panels for distribution when they're not active. Or supplying surges of electrical power when you have turrets that activate only occasionally and drain huge amounts of power.